Now let's talk about the grid more thoroughly. This is the point where you might want to pay attention. What makes the grid system of the game unique is the fact that it's kind of like a tug of war, but it benefits both sides of the story. If you're an aggressive player and you're opening up your opponents left and right, the grid will increase more and more for you. But if you're being on the defensive and blocking extremely well, teching throws, perfectly shielding included, it'll increase for you. You can also charge your grid meter by holding down D. Doing so will exchange your EX meter, basically your super meter, for having a grid advantage. But you'll soon realize that it's okay, because half your EX meter doesn't mean you'll get half your grid. You can do a little exchange for 20% of your EX meter into your grid, and that thing will fill up a lot. Now you're probably wondering what that circle in the back of the grid is. That is actually a timer. Depending on the amount of diamonds filled on the grid, along with the timer reaching its end, you or your opponent will gain access to a very powerful tool in the game, and that is Vorpal. What exactly is Vorpal? As you can see, having Vorpal envelops you or your opponent's character with a blue aura. That's Vorpal. Being in the Vorpal state is a very powerful thing. From the basics of having increased damage, to being able to cancel moves to make them safe, or to continue a combo or a block string. That being called a chain shift. Doing a chain shift is simple. If you have Vorpal, just double tap D. That's the only requirement. Sure, it will get rid of Vorpal for the time being, but making things safe and continuing a combo is sometimes worth it. But Vorpal can do so much more. For example, if you have a good chunk of diamonds filled out on your grid and you chain shift, depending on how much diamonds you have filled, they refill your EX meter, which is basically, again, your super meter. And you even have access to an alpha counter. Well, give granted you always have access to one, but doing so has a price too. To do an alpha counter, you do Fireball back with D when in a block string. Doing an alpha counter without Vorpal will break your guard instantly. But if you do have Vorpal and you alpha counter, it only takes away the Vorpal state and leaves your grid intact. That is something you guys definitely want to remember. A lot of people don't even know that this game has alpha counters in it. Defensive options, if anything, so keep that in mind. Another thing is something very unique for the character you pick. When said character gets into a Vorpal state, you gain access to a Vorpal trait. I know, this is a lot to take in, but hang in there. Vorpal traits are kinda self-explanatory, really. When your character has Vorpal, you're granted something unique for that character. For example, if Hyde gets Vorpal, his Vorpal trait is to do more chip damage. If Carmine gets Vorpal, his Vorpal trait is to actually lose less blood when throwing out his moves. Waldstein, or Stein, however you guys want to pronounce his name, when using his force function, remember what I said earlier about the rock? Without Vorpal, he just hits you with a huge rock. But with Vorpal, if that rock hits you, that will initiate a wall bounce, and no matter how far, Waldstein can dash up and combo off the wall bounce, because that's how far you'll fly back towards him. That is Vorpal traits. From enhanced moves to better frame data, everyone has one. except for Mika. No, seriously, she literally has no Vorpal trait, making her an actual unfinished character in the game. But as my mod said back on Twitch, Mika doesn't need any Vorpal trait because she's already perfect. Oh Jesus. Before I talk about one of the last things Vorpal gives you access to, let's talk about the Veil-Off state mechanic first. Veil-Off, I guess, can be similar to a burst, but doesn't really act as one. A burst being both a get off me tool and, to an extent, a combo extender, and it can be activated when getting comboed on. Veil-Off can be identified as a get off me tool, but with a few catches. One, you actually can't activate it while getting comboed on. That's where it doesn't act as a traditional burst. Secondly, to do a Veil-Off, you must at least have 100% EX meter, and you have to be on the ground. Then you simply press A, B, and C together. The first thing you'll notice is your meter being used, and it is dropping fast. During that time, you'll be able to do supers as much as you can before it drains completely. Doing so at 100% isn't the best example, so here are some examples at 200%. As I said though, Veil-Off is used more as a get off me tool, but if someone is expecting it, they can actually bait it by merely blocking it and get a free combo on you. Not to mention, if someone won't let you breathe and you think a Veil-Off is necessary and it actually hits your opponent, their grid will break. But do be careful. There are some crazies out there that will do it right back at you, causing your grid to break. But you will still be in that Veil-Off state, just with a broken grid. And as I explained it before, limited mobility. Now that we covered the Veil-Off mechanic, it's time to talk about the newest mechanic in Eunice. And this will be the last biggest topic on the basics. There's one more thing that Vorpal lets you have access to, and that thing is called the Cross Veil state. In short, you can see this mechanic as a combo extender with the same traits as the Veil-Off state given its name. The tools needed to activate Cross Veil state are two things we covered earlier, and that's Vorpal with at least 100 to 200% EX meter. In order to activate a Cross Veil state, simply do a combo and activate Veil-Off like you would normally do, but during a combo. Doing so will pop your opponent in the air and falling onto the ground into a knockdown state in which you can actually combo off of. But there is a huge difference from a normal Veil-Off to the Cross Veil state, and that's what you can do with supers. In normal Veil-Off, you can't cancel supers into your Infinite Worth or Infinite Worth EX, while in the Cross Veil state, you can do it with ease, and without even inputting the Infinite Worth motion, which is half circle forward with D. So here's an example with Waldstein. As you can see, this is his Infinite Worth. Costs all my meter. So if I go into a Veil-Off state, I should do it with ease, right? So I do two supers here, and after the suplex, I guess, you see I actually cannot cancel into my Infinite Worth after a super, no matter how hard I try. You have to do it with only a special into Infinite Worth, not super into Infinite Worth. Now let's do a small combo with Cross Veil state active instead. Boosh! Easy! I didn't even need to input the motion for my infinite worth after my supers either. All I did was press A, B, and C again to activate it. That's the power of the cross veil state. An extremely useful tool for everybody. Now this is something that was brought to my attention from 2 comments, actually, so I'm squeezing these last 2 topics in. So the first one is reverse beats. When hearing the term alone, it sounds like nonsense. It sounds like, huh? It kind of just, hearing that term makes a lot of people's brain be like, I don't want to learn this, but believe me, it is not as mind-numbing as it sounds. Let me explain. For those who are coming from Dragon Ball FighterZ, in Fighters, your normal route for combos would usually be lights to mediums to even heavies, or maybe medium into heavies. You actually can't do mediums into lights or your heavy attack into lights in FighterZ, except for Vegito and I believe level 7 Adult Gohan. Another game that does this is actually Marvel 3. You can only do lights into mediums into heavies, or mediums into heavies, or lights into heavies. No matter what, heavies is the end of like that ground combo that you would do. Those are examples of games not having reverse beats. Reverse beats is having the freedom to go from heavy to lights to medium, or to medium to heavies into crouching light. Under Night is one of the few games that has this. Believe it or not, reverse beats is not a common thing within fighting games. It's not ultra rare either, but it's something that's nice to have because it gives you, the player, more options for pressures or even more combos. Now the next thing I'll talk about is something that'll take some time to get used to doing, and that's whiff canceling. This is something a little more advanced, but it's something I think all players should be aware of. If you don't know what whiffing is, you can think of it easily as a normal attack just not hitting the opponent. It's as simple as that. Whiff canceling is something every character in the game can do thanks to the reverse beats I mentioned earlier. And every character's whiff canceling revolves around the button A. Why does it revolve around A to begin with? Well, most of the time, when doing a combo, implementing light attacks into it isn't something often used for most. So that leaves standing A or crouching A out. As I said earlier, whiff canceling is something usually done during a block string you are doing. What does it actually do, you ask? If you do a whiff cancel during a block string, that would instantly put you back into a neutral state, giving you the opportunity to block some like random DP your opponent will do, or apply even more pressure again. It's all mind games. So for example, thanks to the reverse beats in the game, I can go from sweep into whiff cancel into another sweep if my opponent isn't expecting it. Or I could do sweep into whiff cancel and into run up grab, which can potentially break your opponent's grid if they decide to shield at that one moment. You can see already how whiff canceling can be used to get into your opponent's head. I do have to mention though that if you do implement a crouching or standing A into the beginning of your block string, you actually can't whiff cancel to make yourself safe because, well, you used it already. So you better think of something special that's plus on block that you can throw out at the end of your block string. Luckily, there are some missions for characters at the way bottom in the tactics challenges area that will tell you what to do if you have your opponent in a blocked string. I do have to include that each whiff canceling for each character is somewhat different. And what I mean is some goes into the neutral stance faster from either a standing A or a crouching A. Merkava being his standing A, and Enkidu being his crouching A. So experiment with your characters. And that about sums up the basics in Under Night. Remember these, and it'll get you pretty far. But if you are craving for more knowledge of the game, I highly recommend you do the tutorial. It goes even more in-depth on these basics than this video, but be sure not to be afraid of the amount of tutorials there are. Also, your character missions. In time, you'll find better combos, but as of now, the mission mode, in my eyes, is a very solid foundation to understanding your character and the tools that they have to expand their combos. So I highly recommend you go do the tutorial, and there is like a little segment at the end of a character tutorial where it actually goes over like what will be safe on a block string. What options do I have in terms of mix-ups and so on and so forth. So again, the mission mode for your character is something I highly recommend. If you don't do all of it, that is totally fine. Just get that firm understanding of your character and then test things out. I mean, even me, I haven't finished any freaking mission mode at all, and here I am still surviving, oddly enough, right? Hopefully I broke down these basic mechanics simply enough for a lot of you guys to get a good grasp of what these things are and are willing to continue to try and play more Under Night. Either give the game a shot or even continue in your training and so on and so forth. That is my goal. But with that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. My name is Jerome, and I will see you guys within the next video.
Rest in peace!